بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I hope everybody is well. Let's dive in, inshallah, into ayah number 5 today. I'm going to jump straight in so that we can get maximum time to do explanations and things like that. Okay, so we'll start with the isti'adha. Sister Salma, if you'd like to join me for the isti'adha, please. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
Okay, so just when you say أعوذ, that dhal at the end with the dhamma can be lighter. So أعوذ ذو أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
What's happening is, your madwa, when you say a'u, the madwa is a little heavy. And so what's happening is that's carrying over and then making the dal heavy. Whenever you say a'u, you want to try and direct your voice so it's coming straight out. I know you're using the throat, right, for the ain. But what you want to make sure is after you pronounce the ain and you do the squeeze in the throat, after that, everything should become relaxed, especially the back of the tongue. That should be completely relaxed. A'udhu.
أعوذ.
It's a bit better, yes, mashallah. This is much better. If you listen back to the recording, you'll be able to hear the difference, inshallah. But this is better. Jazakumullah khairan. Let's try the basmala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Yes, I just want you to be careful right at the end when you say Ar-Rahim, because the last one in Ar-Rahim, the Ra is not joined to the Ha, right? So when we say Bismillahir Rahman, the Ra is joined here in Ar-Rahman to the Ha. In the last word, Ar-Rahim, the Ra is separate. So we say Ar-Rahim, Ar-Rahim.
الرحيم.
Better. We'll try it one more time. Ar-Rahim.
الرحيم.
Much better. Jazakumullah khairan. Okay. So we look at this ayah. It starts off with walau, walau. Now these are all light letters. The waw at the end, which is sakina, this is what we call a rakhawa letter. It's one of the ones that we do prolong. There's quite a lot of letters that we prolong. This is again one of them. So we don't just say walau, walau, right? The waw is too short at the end. Walau, walau. Keep it running for a bit, okay? It's nice and light, so be careful. Even with the first waw, you don't want to say wa, right? You don't say wallow, for example. You want to say wa, wa. Let your mouth complete the movement. Wa, wa. Tongue is completely relaxed. Wallow, wallow. Okay. Auntie Nasreen, if you could say this for me, please. Wallow.
Walau.
Yes, mashallah, good, alhamdulillah. Then we come to the next word, annahum. Here we see again, noon mushaddad. Now we know about the noon mushaddad. We know that we have to prolong the joining. So when we say an, we prolong that bit. Annahum, because we know that the noon mushaddad is what we call akmal gunna. It has the longest gunna, that nasalization. We hold it for the longest time. From all the different categories of gunna this is the longest. So we say annahum. Try that, Auntie, for me.
Annahum.
Good. When you say an, it's really nice and light, mashallah, that's good. What I want you to do, I want you also to keep that lightness when you say na, anna, annahum.
Annahum.
It's a bit better. Let's try it one more time. Annahum.
Annahum.
It's better. It's better. It can be a little bit lighter still, but it's an improvement from how you said it before. Let's put these two together. Walau annahum.
Walau annahum.
When you say na, Auntie, try not to open your mouth too much. So not anna. She's getting heavy. Anna. Yes, you do open the mouth, but it's not so much, so less.
أن
ولو أنهم.
ولو أنهم
We're gonna have to practice this a little bit, Auntie. Sometimes you're getting it, sometimes you're not. But the fact that you're getting it sometimes and you're getting close to it, it just means you just need to keep practicing, inshallah, and you'll get there. Okay. Okay, coming to the next word, Jazakumullah khairan, Auntie. We have the word sabaru. Now here you have a heavy sad, which is 1 count. You have a ba, which is light and 1 count. You then have a ra, which is heavy, and because of the mad wow after it, it is also 2 counts. It is 2 counts at the end. So we have a tendency that when we have letters that are a bit challenging for us, we tend to spend a bit longer on them, and sometimes we can prolong them and extend them because we're trying to take the time to pronounce them properly. In the practice stage, when you're first just practicing letters in isolation, that's okay. But when you start putting it, and you're reciting the Quran, then you want to try to make sure that you're getting your counts right. So I'm going to say each word separately. First of all, the sad. And when you say saw, it's a heavy letter, right? How are we making it heavy? Quick revision. We know heavy letters, the back of the tongue is slightly raised, slightly pushed back, right? The direction of the sound is almost like, now if you can see me, if this is your upper palate, normally when we speak, the sound comes straight out like this. Okay, let me see if you can do it with in front of my face so you can see the pen in the back, right? So you have a lighter background. Normally the sound comes out like this, okay, for light letters. For heavy letters, like the ru, we tend to direct the sound behind the upper teeth. So it's kind of like there, okay? And notice the pen, how it's kind of diagonally sort of placed. That's the direction of the sound of your voice, where the sound is kind of being sent, okay, for a heavy letter. For letters like sad, which are even heavier, okay, they have this extra element called what we call itbaq, okay? Itbaq means it's got like an extra, like a trapping sound, where the sound is kind of kept in the mouth. It's kind of, the sound ends up bouncing around. And because it's bouncing around like it does in a cave, you end up with almost like an echoey or hollowy type sound that comes with it, okay? So I'm not saying sa, I'm saying sa. You hear that sort of echoey sa, right? How do we get that? The sound, instead of being directed like I was just showing you diagonally, let me just make sure my face is in the way again. There we go, like this. This time your sound is being directed like this. Now notice the pen, how it's more vertical. Where are you sending it? You're sending it to the middle of the upper palate. Okay, so before, for a heavy letter, it was like this. Now for the sad, it is like this. So you're kind of sending your voice up to the middle of the upper palate, okay? That's how you create that echoey sound, because then it hits the upper palate and then the sound starts bouncing around. So you say sa, not sa, for example, right? Sa. So there's a few different elements to think about. If this is new, just have a go, inshallah, but be patient with yourself. Sometimes something like this can take time and takes practice. It's not something that normally for non-Arab speakers, you wouldn't get this immediately. I mean, you could with Allah's blessing, but often, sisters, this takes a bit of practice. So here we say saw, and then the light ba. So you have to say saw ba. So you're shifting from saw ba, fatha ba, nice and light. Saw ba. Okay, Sister Farhat, if you could try this for me, please. Saba. Much better. Good. Alhamdulillah, I like that. Then we have the ru. The ru again is a heavy letter, but we're not going to match it with the sad. It's not a letter that has that extra echoey sound. We don't need to direct the sound to the middle of the upper palate anymore. It's a bit more diagonal now, right? Now the voice doesn't we're not trying to trap it inside the mouth. So this time we just say ru, صبا صا ru, صبارو. Try that, Sister Farhad.
صبروا.
I like it, mashallah. Allah bless you. Very nice, alhamdulillah. The sad was nice and clear. I heard the itbaq. The ba was light. You kept the counts. The ra was heavy and you prolonged it for 2 counts. Mashallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Okay, let's put this together. Sister Farhat, let's put all three words together. وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ صَبَرُوا.
ولو أنهم صبروا.
Yes, so again, like on the screen, I'd like you to work on anna. Just make sure is heavy, is light, and the na is light. Before you start pronouncing the who, finish the na, make it nice light. Annahum.
ولو أنهم صبروا.
It's better, but you have to keep practicing this, inshallah, to make it clearer, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Farhad. Then we have the word hatta. Hatta. Now, I mentioned the ta yesterday, that when we join it, or when it has a sukoon, we have that cutting of the sound. You know, where the sound kind of stops first, right? So we hear hatta, hatta, hatta. Notice here, you don't actually hear the hums. You don't say hat, right? When the ta has a shadda, this is for those of you who are a bit more advanced. When the ta has a shadda, we don't pronounce that pronounced hums, that breath. Hat. We don't say hatta. We say hat. We stop the sound and we go straight for the ta. Hatta, hatta. Yesterday we looked at the word. I think we looked at the word aktharahum, didn't we? We looked at the kaf. The kaf and the ta are similar. They both have that same properties in that you stop the sound and then you hear a little bit of breath after when they have a sukoon. Okay, only when they're joint. So we had ek yesterday. Here, when the ta would also do the same thing, at, right? But what you would do here is when it has a shadda, you don't get the t at the end. It's just hatta. Okay, let's hear that, Sister Humaira, please. Hatta.
حتى.
Again, hatta.
حتى.
Not bad. Can I hear the again? Hatta.
حتى.
Better. Your ha is a little bit on the heavy side, that you're saying ha, hatta.
حتى.
We'll keep practicing, inshallah, but the ta is good, mashallah, well done. Then we have the word takhruja. Takhruja. Now we have the same ta. So the way that you end your hatta, ta again. Okay, same endings. Hatta, ta, hatta, ta. Same ta. But then the ta, so this ta is light. The kha here is heavy. Okay. Now we haven't looked at the kha in that much detail, but remember, if you remember, a couple of sessions ago, I gave you that diagram, so we can complete the diagram today, because we had the bottom of the throat, okay, and we said that the bottom of the throat was ha and hamza. We had the middle of the throat, and we said from here was your ha and your ain, and from the top of the throat, we only had one letter for now, and that was the ghain, and we discussed the makhraj of the ghain. Now we can add on the letter kha. That's from the top of the throat too. The way I remember it is the two that have the dots at the top come from the top of the throat. Okay, that's the way that I often tell my students, and it seems to work. Alhamdulillah. So with the kha, we know that now we already know the makhraj of the ghain. We know it was the top of the throat. You kind of squeeze backwards a bit. Gha, gha. Remember L, right? Now the kha is in the same place. If you want to be really precise for the advanced students, it is a little bit higher than the ghain. It's like the kha, and then the ghain is very much below it. But often what we'll do is we'll tell students that it's just from the same place. Okay. But if you want to be really precise, then the kha is just a fraction higher than the ghain. Okay. One of the big differences with the kha and the ghain is that the kha is a letter of hams. It's a breath letter. It's a breathy. You hear the breath. So you say See, when I say sorry, that was not right at the end. That bit, that part, you're not hearing my voice. Because at the moment you're hearing my voice as I'm speaking, but when I say you're not hearing my voice anymore, you're hearing my breath. Okay. But when I say ghain, when I say now you're hearing my voice coming through. So that's one of the big differences between the letter ghain and the letter kha. They're both heavy letters. Okay, so they both have this heavy element to them. They both don't have itbaq, so they both don't have the echoey sound. But the ghain relies on the sound of your voice, whereas the kha relies on the sound of the breath. Okay, so here we say khuruja, khuruja. Okay, so we say ta. Now for the ta, your lips are fairly relaxed. When you say the kha, you have to remember all those things we said about the heaviness, where the back of the tongue is slightly raised and slightly back. Okay, and then we have, actually, I'll finish the word and then ask somebody to say, inshallah. Then we have a heavy ra. Takhoru, takhoru, takhoru. So keep that heaviness going now. You've started with the kha, it's nice and heavy. Keep it going. Let it go onto the ra. Takhoru. And we don't want to say ro. We want to say ru. Okay, get the circling of the lips and a proper oo sound to it. It's one count, so we don't want to make it long. We don't say takhoru. It's just takhoruja. Khuruja, then the jim is nice and light. Khuruja, khuruja, back to a light ja, not jaw. Okay, so Sister Salma, if you could try this for me, please. Hatta khuruja.
حتى تخرج.
Not bad. Now the kha is one of those letters that we say is rakhaba again, so we keep it running. Okay, it's one of the ones that you do prolong. So you don't say takhruja, it's takhruja. Also, when you finish saying the kha, when you say takh, you don't just stop. It's not like you stop your voice and you stop everything, take a pause and start the ra. You don't say takhruja. You see that small break I had, takhruja. You don't want to have that break before you start the ra. You smoothly and fluently go into the ra. Takhru, takhruja. Try that, Salma.
تخرج.
Good, mashallah, alhamdulillah, jazakumullah khairan. Let's try the two words together, Sister Salma. Hatta takhruja.
حتى تخرج.
Now, if you're new to this, jazakumullah khairan, Sister Salma, very nice, barakallah fiki. If you're new to this and you're finding this challenging because you are shifting from heavy to light, then the slower you say it, the better. Okay, so if you're practicing, take it slow. Da, 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 build it up slowly. Get comfortable with it. Take your time with it. Okay, you don't need to keep sometimes we have a pace of recitation when we're reading, and when we are trying to improve our recitation, we try to read the same pace that we used to read. And really, if you're learning, the slower, the kinder you're being to yourself, and the more time you're giving yourself to shift between movements of different letters. Okay, so the slower you read, the better. Then we have the word ilayhim, hamza, no squeezing, lay. Now here, you have to be careful not to say ilay. Some people say ilayhim, right? Ila, the la you pronounce la, then you join it with the ya. Ila, ilay, lay, not lay, ilay, ilayhim. Try that, Sister Humera, please.
إليهم.
One more time. إليهم.
إليهم.
Good. Alhamdulillah. Let's put the three words together. حتى تخرج إليهم.
حتى تخرج إليهم.
Yes, just when you started to get to the ja, you started squeezing a little bit in the throat. I was starting to hear a bit of like almost like a ain coming into your. It's like you were going to say hamza and then there was slight squeezing in the throat. Let's try that again. Remember, no squeezing in the throat after saying the kha. Okay. حتى تخرج إليهم.
حتى تخرج إليهم.
Yes, mashallah, that was much better. Well done. Okay, then we have the next part. We have lakana, all nice light letters. The lam is one count. The kaf is two counts because of the mad alif with it, and the noon is back to one count. Oh dear, let's do that again. Back to one count. So we say lakana. Be careful not to stretch the la at the beginning for too long. Be careful not to stretch the noon at the end for too long. We don't want to say la kana, for example. We don't want to say la kana again too much, right? La kana. Let's try that, Auntie. La kana.
لكان
Good. لكان.
لكان
Not bad. جزاكم khairan. Then we're back to the letter kha again. This time it's maftuh. It has a fatha or a zabar on it, right? So here we have the kha and it is being joined with the ya, right? So let's look at the kha first. How am I saying kha? I say kha, 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 kha. You get this movement where you're kind of a little bit downwards. You're kind of not going really out this way much, but you're kind of going dropping down. Kha, kha, kha. You think about where you are in your throat. We know it's the top of the throat, round about where the ghain is. We know that we have to make the heavy R sound. Ha, ha. Remember for this one, the sound, where are we directing it? It's not an echoey sound. So this one, put my face in front. So this one, the sound is going behind the upper teeth. Okay, like that. Oh, let me bring it closer there. Okay, it's not in the middle. It's just behind the teeth. That's where you're directing the sound of your voice. And that's what is meant by isti'la. It's the elevation of the sound of your voice. And how you elevating it means you're directing it higher up in your mouth. Okay, so here we say ha, ha, ha. Right? You then join it with, so the movement that you do for the single ha, 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 you want to keep that. And then finish that, then join with the ya. So don't rush for the ya and say khe, khe, for example. You want to say ha, khai, khai. And notice at the end how my lips change, right? I go for a light ya, my lips spread a little bit. Ha, khai, 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 khairan. Try that, Auntie.
خيرا
One more time. Khairan.
خيرا
Not bad, mashallah. Good. The ya again is a rahawa letter, so we can keep it running. And Auntie, you did that, mashallah. So good. You keep it running so that you don't say khayran, it's khayran, khayran. Keep the ya running, then smoothly go into the ra. Khayran. Now here we have something called idgham kamil. Now we've seen a few times we've had different rules. We've had the ikhfa haqiqi that we've seen, where we had a noon sakin and it was followed by a ta, and we were trying to hide the noon. Yesterday we saw idgham naqis with the word min wara'il hujurat. Min wa. We said that this was a merge, but it was an incomplete merge. It's like a halfway merge. So what happened was you kind of heard a bit of the noon, but you also heard the wow. So that was idgham naqis. Here we have an example of idgham kamil. So it's idgham, so it's a merge. What we're seeing here is a double tanween. So it could be an, in, un, or it could be a noon sakin. If it is followed by the letter lam, then we are doing idgham kamil. What does that mean? That means that you know the noon that you hear when you say khayran, khayran, run. That noon you can hear. You can't see it on the board, but you can hear it. That noon is going to become a copy of the next letter. The next letter in this case is lam. So instead of saying khayran, I will now say khayral, khayral. It becomes a lam. And it's a complete merge, which means all of the noon completely is gone and replaced with a lam. And that means there is no gunna. There's no nasalization this time. We just say khayran lahum, khayran lahum. If you could try that, Sister Farhat, for me, please.
خيرا لهم
Yes, your ra can be a little heavier. خيرا لهم.
خيرا لهم.
Yes, mashallah. Good. Alhamdulillah. Good. Okay, let's try saying the whole ayah. Sister Farhat, if you'd like to join me, I'll stop and then I'll repeat. So just as soon as I'll stop in the middle, just because I know some people struggle with their breath. I can't actually. My breath isn't that brilliant either. So we'll and then I'll repeat the words and go back. Okay, Sister Farhat. ولو أنهم صبروا حتى تخرج إليهم.
ولو أنهم صبروا حتى تخرج إليهم
حتى تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم.
حتى حتى تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم.
Just be careful with the word lakana. Yeah, you prolong the noon. So you said lakana, lakana khayra. Straight for the ha. Let's repeat this one. Lakana khayra lahum.
لكان خيرا لهم.
That's better. Jazakumullahu khayran. And then we'll bring the next part of the ayah up to complete it. Here we have Wallahu. Sister Salim. Oh, actually, I think. Okay, let's do Sister Humaira. Sister Humaira, if you could do Wallahu.
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 Yes, when you say who, I want you to round your lips a little bit better and keep the ha nice and light. Wallahu. Who. Wallahu.
Wallahu.
Good, yes. And then we have the word ghafurun. The ghain we've seen before. Remember, this is the heavy ghain from the top of the throat too. And this is the one which relies on the voice. Gha, gha. Ghafurun. Try that, Sister Humaira.
Ghafurun.
Not bad, mashallah. And then we have here, again, we have a double. We have a tanween. It is followed by the letter ra. This is another example which is following the same kind of theory as we see here. Oh dear. Here with the idgham, oops, daisy, with the idgham naqis. Sorry, idgham kamil. This is also idgham kamil. So what are we doing here? Same thing. We're merging the noon sound that we hear. We can't see a noon. Again, ghafurun, run. We can hear the noon. That noon becomes the next letter. So in this time, the next letter is a ra. So the noon sound is going to become a ra. So instead of saying ghafurun, I'm going to say ghafurur, ghafurur. And now because the noon is completely gone and replaced with a ra, again, there is no gunna here. There's no ra, kind of ghafurur. There's none of that. Ghafurur rahim. Sister Humaira?
Ghafurur Rahim.
Good. Let's try the whole thing together. Wallahu ghafurur rahim.
Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim.
Yes, jazakumullahu khairan. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Sister Zuleika, would you like to join me for the whole thing? Okay. ولو أنهم صبروا حتى تخرج إليهم.
ولو أنهم صبروا حتى تخرج إليهم.
Yes, the ha can be a little bit heavy when you say تخرج.
تخرج.
When you try for the ha, remember the back of the tongue is also a bit raised. So we're saying Now try it within the word. تخرج.
تخرج إليهم.
Not bad. The other thing I would say is when you say annahum, who, you can make the ha a little bit lighter. So you say who. It's on the bottom, but the ending ooh. I want nice line. Annahum.
أنهم.
Yes, I feel like with the ha, you're going a little bit maybe too deep. So what I want you to do is I want you to feel, because we know it comes from the same place as the hamza. Remind yourself where the hamza comes from, then think about where the ha comes from. Aha.
Sorry, my throat's funny. Aha.
Yes. Now you see how this was at the right place, this ha. You went, before when you said aha, you went a little bit too deep. The last one was very good. You stayed at the same place. I want you to stay there when you say hum, that's where you're coming from. So I'll make you say it again just to remind yourself. Aha. Yes, this one. Again, aha. It's a little bit deeper now. You're going a little bit deeper. So stay at the place of ah. Aha. Bit better. Aha. Annahum. Better. I think you just need a little bit more practice with this though. Okay, inshallah. Because we have a tendency sometimes with the ha, we think we have to go very deep. So we'll say annahum, hum is going very deep. So remember, we just need to remind ourselves where the makhraj of the ha is. But other than that, mashallah, let's continue inshallah. حتى تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم.
لا تخرج إليهم لكان خيرا لهم.
So just the has we need to work on, inshallah. But because of time, I'm not going to go over those today, inshallah. But inshallah, maybe after the lesson, inshallah, maybe we could practice this. And then the final part, Wallahu ghafurur rahim.
Wallahu ghafurur rahim.
Do that one more time. Wallahu ghafurur rahim.
Wallahu ghafurur rahim.
So it seems like just the bit where you say Wallahu, where you're joining the lam with the wow, it sounds as though there's a little part where you kind of cut it off. I don't hear the sound. Well, it's like Wallahu, I'm over exaggerating it, right? So remember the lam, because it's tawassut, wal, you got to keep it going a bit, but then you don't stop and you carry on fluently onto the lam with the fatha. Wallah, wallahu.
Wallahu.
Again, wallahu.
Wallahu.
Yes, the other thing I want you to do is, you know, when you're joining the wow with the lam, if you do it very quickly, it's like you're adding a nubber to it, right? Well, right? I want you to say, well, a bit more gentle with the joining. Wallahu.
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 Yes, mashallah, barakallah fi. This one was good. Alhamdulillah, this one was very nice, mashallah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Okay, inshallah, barakallah fiqi, no problem. Inshallah, we will see you again tomorrow. Again, stay tuned, as they say, for Sister Zuleika's session, inshallah. Again, just to refresh your YouTube or just close it and start it again. We will be starting in a few moments. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.